Hey everyone, it's Mafalda and this is my January book haul. So I think the last book haul that I did on my channel was in October, and since then I have acquired a lot of books because I can't control myself, and also Christmas, so I kind of have an excuse for that. So since then I have acquired 24 new books, and I just wanted to quickly show you all of them and briefly talk about them, and I know this is going to be a long one, so let's just get started. So the first book that I have to talk about is one that I've actually already read, and it's More About Paddington by Michael Bond. This is the second book in the Paddington series, and like the first book, this is a collection of adventures and stories about Paddington in London, and it's super fun. I highly recommend these books if you're looking for something to like bring you some joy. I highly recommend this. I absolutely love the character of Paddington, so I think I will continue reading these books because they're just super fun, and also very quick because they're super short. The next book that I have to talk about is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I can't believe I still haven't read this classic, but like I've said many times on this channel, there are a lot of classics that I still haven't read, and this is one of them that I really need to get to. And even though I've heard a lot of things about this book, I kind of don't know what it talks about. I think it's about a man that goes to a house, and there he discovers something that happened 3 years ago between a couple, and basically that's all I know, but I'm still excited. I've also never read anything by the Bronte sisters, I don't know how, and I am very excited to pick this one up. The next book that I bought was The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. First of all, let's just acknowledge this beautiful cover. I absolutely love this edition of the book, and I'm so glad that I got it. I think this book is set during the Trojan War, and it's after Queen Helen is captured by the Trojans, and it follows Briseis. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, and it also follows Achilles, I think. I'm not really sure, but I'm excited to dive into this book because I think I've only read the Song of Achilles that was set during this time, and I think this is basically the Song of Achilles but in a different perspective because it does involve Achilles. Also, I've heard great things about this book, so I'm excited to pick it up. The next two books are by the same author, and I bought at the same time, so I'll just show you both of them. And the first one is Percy Jackson and the Singer of Apollo, and the next one is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. Both of them by Rick Riordan. I bought them secondhand. The first one is a short story. It's, I think, set after the first 5 books of the series, of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, and this was a free book on World Book Day of 2019, and I don't know, it was €1, so I was like, why not just read this one before I read the Heroes of Olympus series. And this one I got because I'm collecting these editions of the Heroes of Olympus series because I want to reread them this year. This is the third book, The Mark of Athena, and I remember this one being my favorite when I first read it, so I'm really excited to continue with the series. And after buying this one, I only need House of Hades, which is the only one that I don't have still, and it's really hard to find these American paperbacks nowadays because there are new paperbacks and these ones aren't like made anymore, so I'm trying to find it secondhand, but it's really difficult. I will continue to try and find it, but I don't know. And when I have House of Hades, I will finally start reading this series because I'm super excited to continue my reread of Rick Riordan's books. And yeah, also this cover is just so pretty, and it came in such good condition. The next book that I bought was NW by Zadie Smith. I've been wanting to try this author for a while, so I'm finally glad that I got one of her books to try. And I think this book follows 4 people from London as they come together and then drift apart and go to different cities, and just like them growing up. I think it's basically that, and I think it's just about modern life as we follow these 4 characters, and that's all I know, but I'm intrigued. The next book that I have here is one that I've already read, and it's There Dear by Tommy Orange, and I actually read this book for university because I did a paper on modern Native American representation, so I read this book because of it. And this book follows a bunch of different Native American characters in Oakland as they prepare for the big Oakland powwow that is happening, and it's basically an exploration of how they feel individually as Native Americans, and it's super interesting. I highly recommend this book, and also it was, I think, the first book that I've ever read by a Native American author, and I don't want it to be the last, so I will try to make an effort to read more Native American authors and Native American stories. The next book that I have here is A Gathering of Shadows by V. Schwab. This is the second book in the Darker Shades trilogy, I think that's what it's called, and I read the first one last year and I still haven't gotten around to reading the second one, but I'm really excited to continue with the series because I did really enjoy the first one. And this is a fantasy series and it follows Kel, and he's able to travel between different parallel Londons. There's like White London and Red London, and I really like the concept of the book and I really like the characters, so I'm excited to dive into the second book. The next book that I have here was actually in my favorites list of 2020. I will have a card here if you want to check that video out, and that book is Caucasia by Danzy Senna. This book is set in the 70s and it follows Birdie as she struggles with her racial identity because her mother is white and her father is black, but she looks white basically. She doesn't look black like her sister does, and she struggles a lot with that because a lot of people assume that she's white and she doesn't like that. And it's a really good book. It deals a lot with race and identity and sexuality and family, and it's just a brilliant book. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this book, so I just wanted to mention it once more. And yeah, the next book that I have here I've already read as well, and it's The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This was my first read of 2021 and it did not disappoint at all. And this book follows Rin, who is very poor and from the south, and she wants to escape the place that she's from, so she tests to see if she can get into the Sinigard Academy, and surprisingly she gets into the Sinigard Academy, which is one of the most elite schools in Nikon, and there she finds that she has some powers, and it's a very good book. I will talk about more in my January wrap-up, but yeah, it's a really good book. I completely understand the hype and I'm excited to continue with the series. The next book that I have here is A Little Life by Anya Nakahara, and I'm so scared to read this book, and yeah, I will read it this month and I will vlog it, and yeah, I'm just so scared. I don't really want to know a lot about this book, but I think it follows 4 friends, and yeah, it follows their lives, and it's a really thick book, but I'm ready to feel all the feels that everyone feels and just cry, and yeah, I'm ready for it. The next book that I have is Hood Feminism by Nikki Kendall. I am so excited to read this book. I think I will love it, and this is a non-fiction book about feminism and how white feminism is the mainstream feminism, and it is written by a black author and it deals a lot with race and feminism hand in hand, I guess, and I've heard so many great things about this book, and I just love nonfiction, so I think I will love this book and I'm excited to read it. The next book I don't really have with me, but I have The Dust Jacket, and it's A Curse of Roses by Diana Pingisha. I lent this book to a friend, so that's why I only have The Dust Jacket with me. This is a fantasy book by a Portuguese author, and I've already read this book as well. This book is based in Portuguese myths, and it follows Princess Isabel, who is cursed, and every time she touches food, that food turns into flowers, and she's starving in her country, starving, and she just wants a way to reverse her curse or just like end her curse, and the only one who can help her is an enchanted Mora called Fatian, but Fatian is also tied to magical bonds herself, and the only way to set her free is with a kiss. I absolutely loved this book. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and I will talk a little bit more about it in my December wrap-up, I think, so yeah, stay tuned for that. The next book that I have here is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is the first book in the Ember in the Ashes series, I think. And honestly, I never really had an interest in reading this series, but everyone this year was raving about the last book because it came out a few months ago, so I just got really curious all of a sudden because people say that it's like the best fantasy series out there. And this book follows Laia, and after her grandparents are murdered and her brother is arrested, she is seeking revenge, and the only people that can help her are the rebels. And in exchange for their help, she decides to go as a spy to the Empire's military academy, and there she meets Elias, I think, and I don't know if they fall in love, but I hope not. And yeah, it just sounds super interesting. I know it's very political and very complex. It has 4 books in the series, I think, and I'm excited to pick this one up. The next book that I bought was Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is the last published book by Alice Oseman. I still haven't read it, but I'm super excited to pick it up. And this book follows Georgia, and she's starting university, and she's never been in love, she's never been in a relationship, she hasn't been kissed, and she really wants to explore that in university, but she realizes that maybe all of those things aren't for her, and it's about her finding her identity as asexual and a romantic. And I've never read a book that deals with this topic, and also I'm not a romantic or asexual, so I'm really excited to see how Alice Oseman explores that. And also I've heard a lot of great things about this book from a romantic asexual people, so yeah. The next book that I have in this haul is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. It's so funny that I have two V. Schwab books in this haul. I hadn't noticed, but I am so excited to read this book. I'm hopefully picking it up next month in February, and this book is about Addie LaRue, obviously, and she makes a deal with the devil so she can become immortal. The only downfall of that deal is that no one remembers her after they cross her path, and then in present day she meets Henry, and for some reason Henry remembers her, so they go on this journey to find out why Henry remembers her and why this is happening for the first time in like 300 years. I haven't heard one bad review of this book, so I am hoping this will be a 5-star. I'm really excited to read it, and yeah, hopefully I'll pick it up next month. The next book that I have here is one that I'm actually currently reading, and it's Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This is the 20-something book club pick for January. If you don't know what the 20-something book club is, I will leave the announcement video right here on the cards, and it's basically mine and Casey's book club. We're hosting it for this year. Every month we have a book, and this is the January pick. I'm currently reading it, I'm loving it, and this book follows Mila, who is out of high school and out of the foster care system, and she's ready to find her new home. And so one day she gets an opportunity to work in a farm, and obviously she takes it, but what she's not ready for is for that farm to bring back old memories and old ghosts from her past. I'm still in the beginning of the book, but I feel like I'm going to love it. Also, this was one of Kayla's favorite books from 2020. I love books and Lala, and I really trust her opinion, so I'm hoping that I will love it as well. The next book that I have here is The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. I've been wanting to try this author for a while, and I finally picked this one up, especially because I've already seen the movie and I know the story fairly well. And this book is set in England during the ruling of Henry VIII, and it's basically about him falling for Mary Boleyn, but then his interest starts to fade and he starts pursuing Anne Boleyn, who is the sister, and the only way that Anne Boleyn is going to be with him is if they marry. And I think we all know this story. This is such an infamous story about Henry VIII and all of his wives. I'm really excited to finally pick up a Philippa Gregory. She's like the queen of historical fiction, so I thought I would try it. And also she has a lot of series, and I think this is a standalone, so yeah, I'm excited to pick this one up. And now moving on to Christmas presents, because obviously I got a lot of books for Christmas from lovely people, so I will start talking about them now. The first one that I got was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and this book was gifted to me by the lovely Mary from Mary Among Stories. I will leave her channel right here in the cards. She is so nice, and I really wasn't expecting this book to arrive at my door, and it's actually so funny that she gifted me this book because I want to read this book because of her. This is one of her favorite books, and I keep hearing her talk about this book, so I really want to pick it up. I've already seen the movie for this book, so I kind of know what it talks about, but it follows Dorian Gray. He is a beautiful but corrupt man, and one day he wants a portrait made of him that encapsulates his beauty and his youngness, I guess. And what happens is that Dorian Gray stays young forever, but his portrait doesn't. I know this is a lot of people's favorite classic, so I'm excited to read it because I don't know how I still haven't read it, so yeah. The next book that I got was from my boyfriend, and it's Emma by Jane Austen. I'm super excited to dive into this book, especially because I want to read this book before I watch the movie adaptation, especially the one from last year, from 2020. And what I know about this book is that it follows Emma, obviously, and she's really rich and spoiled and bratty, and she thinks she's a matchmaker, I think. I think she serves as a matchmaker, and maybe she falls in love. I don't really know. I'm kind of guessing because I know that Clueless, the movie Clueless from the 90s, is inspired by Emma, and Cher does fall in love in that movie, so I'm kind of guessing that Emma does as well. But I'm really excited to read this book. I know this is one of the most like classic and well-known Jane Austen books. I've only read Pride and Prejudice until now, so I'm excited to pick this one up. And the next one I also got from my boyfriend, and it's the one that I'm most excited about in this haul, and it's this beautiful edition of love The Wizard of Oz. I've never really had a special edition of any book, and seeing as this is one of my favorite books, it just makes sense. And look at this. Look at the pages. Look at the cover. Look at the spine. Look at the back. Look at the inside pages. This is just so beautiful, and it has illustrations, and this contains the first 5 books in the Wizard of Oz series, and I've only read the first one, so I'm excited to continue. I never really have the courage to buy special editions of books for myself because they're so expensive, so I am so happy that my boyfriend got me this one because I've been eyeing it for a while, and yeah, it's just so pretty. I really want to display it on my bookshelves, but I still don't know how. And also my bookshelves aren't really good for that, but yeah, this is so beautiful. I'm so excited to read the next few books. And yeah, the next book that I have here I got from my parents, and honestly I got it for myself because I asked them to give me this book, but it's Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is one of my favorite books from last year. It's absolutely beautiful. I just love this book, and also this edition of the book is just like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And yeah, I just had to like ask them to give me this edition. Like, look at this. It's so beautiful. And this book follows 2 girls, Camino and Yahaira. One is in New York, the other one is in the Dominican Republic, and they don't know that they're sisters until their father dies in a plane crash, and suddenly they come together and try to deal with grief and family and secrets, and it's just so good. I highly recommend this book. I talked about it more on my favorite books of last year of 2020, and yeah, it's just so good. I'm so glad that I finally got the book for myself. And the next 2 books are gifts from my friend Casey here on BookTube. She got me 2 books, and I'm so excited about the both of them. And the first one is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is actually the February pick for our book club, and I'm so glad that I finally got it and that she got it for me. I'm so grateful. And this book follows Enchanted Jones, who is an aspiring singer, and one day she meets a very popular R&B artist called Corey Fields, and one day Enchanted Jones wakes up with blood on her hands and she doesn't remember anything that happened, and Corey Fields is dead. And obviously every sign points to Enchanted being the murderer of Corey Fields, and I think it's basically a murder mystery, but it also deals with the music industry and how toxic it is, and it also deals with very heavy topics. And this is our book club pick for February, so if you want to join us in February in reading this book, please do. We have a Discord and a Twitter and an Instagram page, so yeah, please join us. I'm super excited to read this book next month. And the last book that I have here to talk about was also a gift from Casey, and it's Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. And I've heard a lot about this book, especially because it has bi rep, and this book follows Millie, who decides to apply to a boarding school in Scotland, and she goes there, and her roommate is actually the Princess of Scotland, I think. And yeah, at first they hate each other, but then they start to like each other and maybe fall in love. I don't know, but I'm super excited to read this book, and I've heard great things about it, so yeah. And just before I go, I just wanted to say that this year, one of my goals that I didn't really say in my goals video is that I want to buy more books secondhand. And basically before I buy a new book, I just want to see if there's an option of me buying in secondhand, and I just wanted to show you all of the books in this haul that I bought secondhand in various websites. So I bought all of these books in different places. I got this one from Awesome Books. I got these 2 books from Trade Stories, which is a Portuguese website for like exchanging books. I got this one at Bookshop Bivar here in Portugal in Lisbon. I got this one from Amazon because it was the only place that I could find this book. Basically, it was available nowhere, so I had to buy it on Amazon, and I really needed it. And this one I got in a website that I will talk about in one of my next videos, so stay tuned. And yeah, I'm really proud of myself that like 7 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm really proud that 6 of these books that I talked about in this haul were all secondhand, because it means that I'm giving them a second opportunity and a second home, and it really makes a difference. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!